We were invited by Goskoncert, the official Soviet concert agency, to tour the Soviet Union as part of the cultural exchange between the U.S. and USSR. By now, the Cleveland Quartet has had occasion to make friends with the immigration authorities in many of the countries we visited. We made a few more on our arrival in Moscow.
And there we were after 18 months of planning and anticipation. The Cleveland Quartet and my daughter Michelle. 5 Americans with our 4 Italian strads, arriving in Moscow from London and on a Japanese airline. But the real confusion came when we discovered that our visas, which of course we couldn't read being entirely in Russian, were written for the wrong month. The immigration officer gave me a serious look and a big miette, and it seemed for a while that he wasn't going to let us in. So I've just given the immigration people the contract from Goskoncert, which shows, of course, that we're playing concerts here in the second half of September, and they're trying to put it all together.
A Russian folk song is just one of many ways this 4th grade class at the Harley School in Rochester, New York, is learning about life in the Soviet Union. The children's interest in the USSR came about when classmate Michelle Katz's father, cellist of the famed Cleveland Quartet, decided to take her with him on tour to the Soviet Union.
From the very first moment that we got the invitation, I had it in my head that I wanted Michelle to make the trip. I was hoping it would be a life-shaping experience for her. Thought it was a good age for her to go, that I wanted her to become aware of such issues as war and peace, of the problems and the importance of coexistence. And her 4th grade class, just at the opening of school, because we left in September, they spent several days making what they termed a peace quilt. It was an American patchwork quilt, I think very beautifully conceived, and each of the children in her classroom made a drawing which became one of the patches of the patchwork quilt.
I drew a handshake, and it's sort of like a dove or like a symbol of peace. Some Russian people probably don't even know that we're thinking about them right now, and that they probably don't know that what we do every day. And I think it will help them know a lot about America, because some of them might be wondering, what is America like?
We began the tour in Moscow, and the first concert was at the Moscow Conservatory in Tchaikovsky Hall. It's a very historic place, and we were quite moved to be playing there. When we arrived to rehearse, there were a few Russians who asked if they could listen, and we were happy to invite them in. As we had envisioned the tour as a people-to-people mission, we made a point to speak with them partway through our rehearsal. It developed that they were a string quartet, listening with their professor, who is the first violinist of the famed Shostakovich Quartet.
After we finished playing for them, we just really wanted to have a chance to talk with these students, because, of course, as teachers at Eastman School, teaching is a very important part of what we do, and we wanted to compare notes with these students, with their professor, and just to have a little bit of direct contact as opposed to only indirect, which happens too frequently on tours. You don't get to meet the real people.
Are you professor of камерной музыки?
Я профессор. Какого? Я участник квартета имени Шостаковича.
He's a member of the Quartet of Shostakovich, first violin.
Это мои студенты.
He's a disciple.
Yeah, fantastic. Hello.
Коллег.
As we were talking, of course, the subject of the instruments come up, these strads that we have learned from the Corcoran Gallery. And we thought we would take the liberty of allowing these girls to play on them. Paul Katz was the first one to have confidence to do this, and the cellist was so excited. It was marvelous to see. She just beamed.
I asked, yeah, maybe she wants to play in the Cleveland Quartet. She can play.
I think it's a great music.
Okay, yeah, good.
Jam session.
Yeah.
They played with a remarkable unanimity and listened really, really well to ends of notes and through the notes, so that they played everything so you could listen right through the quartet, and the remarkable transparency and excellent intonation.
The whole sense of the afternoon was really quite wonderful. It gave me this feeling that music transcends all kinds of barriers, language, cultural, ideological, everything. We just became 8 people wrapped up in our love for music, and there was a lot of warmth and friendship and really touching human emotion passing between all of us.
These houses are called 3 brothers because they stand so close together, like 3 loving brothers. But in fact, it was because around the town was this fortification wall, and there was space limit. Only that's why. And the ground was very expensive. And this is, in fact...
It was really exciting being in Riga, aside from being a very beautiful city. It made me aware of where one of my grandfathers was born. It was rather touching and made me feel that here we have a connection between peoples. I, being an American citizen now, but at the same time having my roots in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev has opened the doors to freedom of expression in the Soviet Union. People now speak with great pride of their nationalistic roots.
We're starting in 15 minutes, so you could, I'll be right back, okay?
On several occasions, Soviet musicians came back and played on their instruments. One could see the delight in their eyes after they played on these instruments, and the exchanges were warm, and we obviously shared common interests, our love of music, our love of string quartets, and all of these things just brought us closer through the language of music, a language so important in our present day. We need these interchanges amongst school children, amongst musicians, with pen pals, to bring about a happier world for our children.
partway through the tour, we were getting a little bit tired, and that I personally felt that I couldn't pass up a chance to see the Baltic coast, tired or not. So I decided that it would be possible to get out to the resort area, which is just to the west of Riga. It's on the Gulf of Riga, actually, which then leads into the Baltic and turns out to be quite a famous resort area. It's called Jurmala.
I like to play hide and seek.
Do hide and seek.
And volleyball.
And volleyball, I see. Now, nice.
I like to play hide and seek.
Yes, indeed. They learned English and they began to study English in the second grade. Yes? And now they are in the third grade.
How many years of English will they have?
From the second form up to the 10th. Up to the 10th, you see. Let us be friends then. If you give us the address of your class, the pupils of this form will write then letters, and we shall be friends then, pen friends. Agree?
In Arkhangelsk, the school where we visited, a very beautiful day, we spoke with some of the students from an English class, and we're quite impressed with the level of the English spoken.
As it turned out, Michelle did have a wonderful time, and I think for the quartet it made a huge difference too, because as it turned out, her coming along with us opened a number of doors, particularly the visit to schools, and allowed all of us to go into Russian classrooms, see young children, and their study of English and their study of the world and the books that they read and the costumes that they wore and their teachers, and the whole thing was really quite thrilling.
Let's be friends. You are speaking nice Russian. Take it, please. Your friend, it's for you. Well, let's go away from this class. До свидания, dear.
Thank you very much.
Спасибо, ребята. И в понедельник слушайте белогорскую группу с 6 вечера до половины 7. Пожалуйста.
I guess what struck me the most is that the goals and desires, even though the directions we come from are very different from our backgrounds, the goals and the desires are very, very similar. They wanted to know, how do our children grow? What are their favorite subjects? What do they like? How do they like? What do you like?
They were incredibly up on what was going on in the United States. They also talked about an exchange with the United States and how they could now come and visit. And they were very excited about that. They talked about Niagara Falls, and they knew a lot more about the United States than my units knew about certainly things to do with Russia.
I was very impressed with one boy who spoke so proudly about his school, about his friends, and he wanted to know about my children. What were they like? And his enthusiasm for life and for his companions was very special. Archangel is a very beautiful city. I think we had some of the warmest experiences with the people there. It happens to have one of the most beautiful concert halls in all of the Soviet Union, at least in the cities we played in. And people were so warm and seemed to love the concert. And it was somehow very beautiful being in Archangel, because it seems it's so far from being near the Arctic Circle, having a very expansive quality to it. And at the same time, meeting with so many warm people made it a highlight on the tour.
Often, when concertizing abroad, we like to play part of Charles Ives' second quartet as an encore. It's an intriguing piece, and it gives us an excuse to speak to the audience. Don has spoken in German, Peter in Spanish and Italian, and Paul even in Japanese. I was elected to learn the 5-minute introduction in Russian.
Вторую часть второго квартета Чарльза Айвеса.
As I had explained in Russian, this movement tells a bit of a story. It's entitled Argument, but sounds more like a fight than an argument. The second violinist plays the role of a goody-goody, a conservative critic who doesn't like Ives' music. So Ives has him play a cadenza. This critic Rollo Fink, who unsuccessfully tries to calm the argument before the fight really breaks out. Now the cello plays Tchaikovsky's Pathetique Symphony while the violin plays Columbia, Gem of the Ocean. Perhaps the Russians and the Americans fighting? Rollo tries once more to soothe the argument with the Ode to Joy from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. The end of the movement is written on Dante on Scratchy. In the final two chords, Allegro con biscuito.
We had a little free time in Vilnius, and it was such a gorgeous day. We all took a walk together, and not far from the center of town, there was a mountain that we started strolling up. The top of it was this wonderful old castle that attracted us, so we trekked up to the top and found an old man working up there with a shovel. I assumed he was a laborer, a caretaker.
How do you know English?
So I was quite surprised when he turned and started speaking in English to my daughter. We went over and we had quite a wonderful conversation with him. It turned out that he was an accountant. He had spent some time in prisoner of war camp during the Second World War. That was how he had learned English. And he explained that he was donating his time to help in the restoration and the preservation of this historic landmark.
This flag is Soviet Lithuanian flag. And there's an old Lithuanian flag also.
Also?
Yes. And you can fly it now?
No, you can't do it.
And can we see it in the city? Can we go to some place and find it?
Yes.
Where?
Now it is.
Now it is.
Yes.
It makes you happy?
Always.
I can't tell you how much fun it was for all of us to have Michelle on this trip. She kept us kind of in a good mood and youthful and fun-loving. And on the way back from this trip, after we descended down the mountain, that was one of the occasions where she and James had this rather wild foot race through the park. Of course, he could barely keep up with her.
We happened in Vilnius during our walk around to encounter a very calm demonstration of an anti-nuclear group. We stopped to chat with them and discovered that what they were actually protesting was not the nuclear plants per se, but rather the safety measures of the plants that are being set up. As we were talking with them, it became clear that they were not at all afraid to speak publicly, to sign their names and addresses to these petitions, and in fact signed ourselves. So we chatted with them a little bit and said, could you have done this a couple of years ago? The answer, of course, was no. And we said, well, what makes it possible now? And they all just beamed. It was a wonderful sight. And they said, Gorbachev.
Gorbachev.
In general, the response from the audience was fantastic. They bring gifts to the performer very often.
And just show me something with the left hand. I'm interested that the left hand feeling.
Following the concerts, tired as we were, we looked forward to meeting the audience. Musicians always came backstage, eager to talk shop. It gave us pleasure to exchange ideas and proved again that music is really a bridge between cultures.
Okay, let's do it. Enjoy it.
Leningrad, Paul, Michel, and I took advantage of a glorious day to see the Hermitage.
A very special moment was our meeting in Leningrad with Soviet composer Sergei Slonimsky, who some 19 years before had written a string quartet called Antiphonies, which was at that time banned in the Soviet Union and smuggled out to the West through a composers convention in Warsaw. At that time we were a one-year-old string quartet. Somehow it came into our hands in Cleveland, and we learned that piece and toured widely with it in our first 5 years as a string quartet, playing it all over the United States and Europe.
He's a great composer. Ask him if did he receive...
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
This is 20 years ago. Did he receive a tape from us of his...
Я получил замечательную...
Yes, I got a nice, wonderful play. He has this tape.
Даже часто на встречах с учеными,
during the meeting with the scientists and with the musicians, very often I show this tape.
Замечательное исполнение, проникновенное, выразительное.
Very expressive.
We played the string quartet by Christopher Rouse in every city on the tour. We wanted the Soviets to hear American music, and so, as one of our favorite American composers, we commissioned him to write a new piece for this trip. A special occasion was an afternoon at the Library of Foreign Literature in Moscow, which was an exchange between ourselves and a select group of Russian composers, poets, and intellectuals. It was our chance to hear them reacting to the work.
Didn't really turn out to be exactly that. When we got there, we found I had envisioned it as something around a kind of a seminar table or something such as that. They put us up on stage. There was the people that were there were in the audience. There were a good number of intellectuals there, but they were just common music lovers off the street. I think that became one of the most wonderful parts of the exchange, and basically what they wanted to do was have us play. At any rate, we decided to play. I gave a little introductory talk to them, and I said, listen, we're here not to play, because we've done all that already. We're here to discuss. We want to know what you think about American music that you've heard. We want to know what you think about our concert. If you've seen us in concert, we want to know what you think about the Rouse Quartet. We want to know what you think about Americans and our country and all of these kinds of things. Actually, it became a very wonderful, passionate kind of afternoon.
And it gave a kind of serene yet somewhat unresolved feeling.
I will explain a little bit, yes? When we found that the Cleveland Quartet was coming to the Soviet Union and that I would be bringing my daughter, Michelle, her class, which is the 4th grade at the Harley School, asked if they could make a gift to give to Soviet children as we're going to do today.
Когда они обнаружили, что они приедут в Советский Союз в гости, то класс Мишел попросил передать подарок советским детям.
And you have the quilt? Oh, go get it. We will open
Although
it.
We had already had several touching and memorable visits with Michelle to 4th grade classrooms, she had been waiting the entire trip to present her school's peace quilt to children in Moscow. In our conversations with these young Russian kids, it became clear that they really were aware of the terrors of nuclear war. and their appreciation of the quilt, their outpouring of emotion, and expressions of friendship were very real and heartfelt.
My American classmates and I would like to be friends with all Soviet children.
Мои американские друзья и я хотели бы быть долгой дружбой с советскими ребятами.
И мы рады также подарить Мишель этого маленького книжку, который символизирует сильный и добрый характер нашего советского народа. Знаю, это серьезно.
I think we're very lucky this evening because one of our best-known string quartets in the United States is now on tour in the Soviet Union, and they've kindly agreed to play for us this evening.